Storytelling is something that has to do with your brain and your mind. When you hear a story, your brain does not just listen to the story, it actually lives the story. And your mind lights up as if you are actually experiencing what you are hearing firsthand. And that is a big power of storytelling. It actually brings your audience in and makes them feel like they are not just hearing it, but they are actually experiencing and living the moment instantly. And that is something that you should always aim for whenever you are creating content, especially when you want it to look like you are telling a story, which is always the best way to create content anyways. For some of us that does not now know the meaning of storytelling, it is, the act of using words and signs and, language to actually tell a story and paint a narrative to your audience. Now, you are not just painting a narrative to your audience, you have an aim. And you always want to ensure that you are bringing them in and they are experiencing the journey with you. Because that way, they will be able to connect more and engage more and also be inspired by what you are saying. It's a good thing when it comes to storytelling. Now, while we are trying to, be good storytellers, there are certain mistakes that we make. And if you are still here on this video right now, we are going to be talking about 5 mistakes that we make, that you make, that I make, whenever it comes to us actually telling stories and we are creating stories in terms of content. And we are actually not going to stop at talking about these mistakes. We are also going to talk about how we can fix them to become better storytellers. Because when we are looking for engagement online, the best way to actually go about it is to create stories, is to create our content in the form of stories that our audience can actually engage and live through it. This is the point where you click the subscribe button, because I think I'm going to have to arrest some of you, because you can just click that subscribe button right now for free. But then I don't know why you want to wait for me to come to your place with a policeman to actually arrest you and force you to do what you can do free of charge. So if you don't want me to get to that point, you should click the subscribe button now. And even if you are not on YouTube, go to YouTube and click the subscribe button now, because if you do not, I'll find you. So let's go back to the video. A good story has to be something that grabs attention and is engaging. And for the most part, you have to plan the end of the story from the beginning, because your aim is that what you are saying has to be memorable and relatable, something that your audience can actually relate with and they've probably experienced or seen in the past. That is something that a lot of content creators get right, and some of them get it very wrong, because when you are creating content that your audience have lived through in the past, and the moment you are saying it, they can almost complete your sentences for you. That way, because it is something that they have experienced in the past, there is a chance that they are now going to be attributing that memory to what you said. And that way it is going to be memorable, because it's going to make them not forget the kind of content that you have created. And as a storyteller, in whatever niche that you are, in whatever kind of content you are creating, that is something that you should always strive to do. So when you're talking about problems, when you're talking about solutions, make it something that you have broken down so much that your audience can actually relate to it, especially at the point when you are beginning and you're talking about the problem. Make it something that they've seen play out, either in their lives or in the lives of people close to them. And that is how you can ensure that it is memorable and something that they will not forget. Because the aim of us telling stories is because we want our message to resonate with our audience, and we do not want it to get in through the left ear and move out through the right ear. So now let's get to talking about some of these mistakes, right? And one major mistake that I have made myself, and that I see a lot of content creators now. When we are talking about storytelling, it's not just about a video. When you are writing a blog post, you can structure it in a story format. Now, one mistake that I've seen a lot of people make, that I have also made myself when it comes to storytelling, is that we do not understand our audience as much as we should. Imagine one person, going for an event, right? And they have already informed you that this is a tech event, a youth event. When they say tech event in this generation, we should always attribute it to the Gen Z generation, right? And imagine now going to that kind of event and giving illustrations and giving examples and coming off like you are talking to people of 40 to 60. You have to always study the room, understand your audience, and plan for them. There are times when you will not really know the kind of audience that you are talking to, but always plan that, okay, this is the kind of event that it is, this is the kind of content that I'm creating, these are the kind of people that should listen. And this is where, having a buyer persona is extremely important in whatever it is that we are doing. Because at the end of the day, you are speaking to the majority. and you should always ensure that you are satisfying the majority. So understanding your audience and knowing exactly what they want is going to be how you are going to tailor your message to be something that resonates with them. Because the reality of a 15-year-old is entirely different from, the reality of a 30-year-old. And the examples that a 15-year-old is going to relate to is different from the examples that a 30-year-old is going to relate to. So you have to understand the demographics of your audience, know the locations, know for the most part, their locality. Right? When you see someone that lives in Nigeria, there are examples that you can give that person in Nigeria that the person is going to say, I've experienced this before. But when you give that same example, to someone that probably lives in Ghana or someone that probably lives in the US, it is possible that they have never experienced it before. And at that point, you have lost them because you are saying things that they cannot relate to. And this is why it's extremely important that you know your audience to be a very good storyteller. Now, it does not even stop with you knowing your audience, because you have to create a structure about it. I said it earlier that when you are telling a story, you should always plan the end right from the beginning, because that way you are not going to be lost in transit. Right? Plan a clear structure from the beginning. Know exactly how you want to start. Know exactly what the middle structure is going to look like, and know exactly how you want to end it, because that way these are 3 different dots that you have to ensure that they are connected. And if you do not plan it well, it is going to be disjointed, and it is not going to feel natural at some point. And that is something that you should always ensure that is consistent with your stories, right? You have to ensure that your story feels like something that is real and something that is natural, and then you are not just cooking up something. It's a different thing, if you are talking about something that is fiction, and then they understand that, okay, this is fiction. It is the structure is entirely different. The aim of a fiction is entirely different. But when you are telling a story, you want it to be something that they can relate to. And if it does not feel natural, it is going to be disjointed and they're going to lose interest. Now, in order for it not to feel disjointed, and in order for you to ensure that it is natural, you have to create a clear structure from the beginning. Ensure that the beginning is something that grabs attention and want to keep them to continue to listen to you. And then for the middle, you have to ensure that at the middle you are evoking their emotion. You are saying things that they can relate to, things that at the point when you are saying it, like I said earlier, they can almost complete the sentence when you begin it, right? And then at the end, always have something that your story is working towards. And when you have something that your story is working towards, it is going to affect the kind of things that you are going to say at the beginning and in the middle. So I don't know if you know, but following a clear structure is the second thing that you should do, because a lot of us do not actually have a structure about it, and that's another mistake. We just jump into it. We have an idea and then we just start to create that content. Even if you want it to be spontaneous, have it at the back of your mind that, okay, this is how I want to start. This is what the middle is going to look like. This is where I am going. So it's a mistake that a lot of us make, and having a clear structure is how you do not make that mistake anymore. And then moving on, for the third one, you should always try to add a personal touch, right? Because over the weekend, someone was talking to me about wanting to be a better storyteller and how should they go about it. And the response I gave the person was that the person should first begin to live an interesting life. And why is this important? When it comes to storytelling, you want to ensure that you are adding a personal touch, because if you have not lived a lot of scenarios yourself, you will not be able to paint a lot of real and genuine scenarios. So for you to actually be able to tell good stories, you have to have lived a number of scenarios yourself, because when you have lived it, it comes natural when it comes to talking about it or writing about it. And then it is not fiction, because when you are telling something that you saw or something that you actually experienced, there is no way it is not going to be captivating. Your expression, because there are times when you read certain novels, and that is why for the most part I enjoy novels or books more than watching movies. I once had an Harry Potter novel, and I think it was the first over 700-page book that I'm going to read. Now, I read that book, because it was mine. I had already read that book about 6 or 7 times. And I've forgotten the particular book. Now, when I saw the Harry Potter movie for that particular book, and then I saw the movie, I was a little bit disappointed. And why was I disappointed? Because the book was meticulous. It was telling me, the movement of the leaves, how the leaves was moving, how, exactly how the breathing was coming up. And it was almost like I was there when those things are happening. Now, a movie can only show you some of those things in hindsight. It might be there, but you will not be able to pick everything, while the book will actually paint the picture to you in a better way, right? That is why I'm saying when you have lived so many experiences that you are trying to now talk about, it is going to be much better, because at that point you know all of the details, and in a way you're going to be putting all of the details subconsciously into the content, right? And that is how you add a personal touch, and that is how you bring them on, because they are humans as well. And when they now begin, and that is what differentiates us from AI, because AI has not lived those scenarios, and when you have lived the scenarios, you can always include the emotions and the expressions that, you know, no one else will be able to give or tell the story exactly the way you are telling it, right? And that is how you add personal touch, and it's extremely important, because you are talking to humans, and if you are not talking about it, you are trying to bring them on a journey, right? And if you are not painting the picture in a way that is real, because our human brain is going to process it the right way, right? And our human brain is going to know if this thing is sounding genuine or not. So if it is actually genuine and you have lived that scenario in a way, then it means that you will be able to articulate your words better and talk about these things in a better way, right? So adding a personal touch is something that's extremely important when it comes to telling, you know, a good story. Sincerely, for the most part, I've even mentioned how using vivid details and imagery also ensures that you are telling the right story, because that's actually the fourth thing that I want to talk about. You have to ensure that you are using vivid images and, you know, stories. You are painting the right picture for them. You are using the right words at the right time, right? Instead of you just saying something the way it comes to you, you're actually building it up. You are building it up to create that connection with them. You are building it up to create that connection with them. I think when it comes to figure of speech, I've forgotten that particular one, but I think personification is the right one for that. You know, when you are painting the right picture, and then you are not just saying that the wind was blowing, but then you're actually painting the picture of how the leaves were moving, or how the wind that was blowing was, you know, moving your clothes, because that way they can actually see it happen, because you are showing the image either in the video or in the text. And that is when I mentioned the fact that I enjoy reading books more than watching certain movies. If the book is available anyways, you will definitely enjoy the book much better. Of course, it depends on, you know, how good of a storyteller the author is. But when you actually find an author that's extremely good, just like the person that wrote that Harry Potter book, you will definitely enjoy it more than movies, right? And because it actually paints the picture, and because you are not seeing the wind the way you see it in a movie, and you have to experience the wind, then it means the words have to articulate it better, right? Now imagine someone that is now telling a story in words, and then the person is actually saying it the way it is written in a book. Imagine how well it is just going to look like you are getting into a virtual reality, because the moment the person is saying something, that particular thing is showing up on your subconscious, and you're actually seeing it happen and playing out that scenario. And that is why you have to always work with something that your audience can relate with, right? Because imagine telling a story about snow in Africa. Africans naturally will not be able to connect to that because they have not seen it happen. But imagine telling the story of how scorching the sun can be. And a lot of Africans have actually experienced scorching sun in the past. In fact, you're not going to paint the picture and then it is going to look like, oh, so this was how it actually looked like this particular day when I was feeling so uncomfortable in the sun, right? So it is very important that you are painting those pictures, and then you are saying how the sun is reflecting on the skin. You are saying it in actual words, and then that way you are almost taking them back into the sun and making them feel the experience. Some of them begin to have goosebumps because they are actually living it the exact way that you are saying it. So before I say the fifth one, I'm sorry for saying I'm going to arrest you earlier. I'm sorry for saying that, but please, you should like and subscribe. You should definitely like and subscribe to this video. You know, it also encourages me to push out more content around this. And I hope you are doing that at the moment. Please click the subscribe button and the notification bell. So whenever I drop another video, it is not always going to be about storytelling anyways. You will definitely get notified. And I do not have to come to other socials to pull you to YouTube to actually watch the video, right? And then, you know, for the last one, there is an adage that they say that practice makes perfection. And for every skill, because storytelling is a skill, everything that I have said now, there are things that you have to be sure about exactly how you are doing it and creating a strategy around it. And you have to continue to practice. So practice makes perfection. You have to continue to do these things continuously, because that way you are going to get used to it. It is almost like a means to an end, right? it's almost like a means to an end, and you have to continue to do it so that it's going to be something that you are used to. There are certain things that you have to begin to plan and actually put down at the point when you start, but because you have continuously done it consistently over time, right, you might not need to do those things anymore because it has become a part of you, and that way it resonates better with your audience, especially if you do not put a lot of planning into it. That is why some people say that sometimes it is easy for a 14-year-old to create a viral content than someone that has a marketing degree, because the 14-year-old is just doing it naturally without, you know, putting so much thought into the quality, or let's make this better, or let's cut this off, or let's put this into it. The 14-year-old is just creating something that is natural, and that way people can actually relate with, you know, the mistakes that the person is even making. People can actually relate with, you know, the situation of things, that the life that the person is living, and how the person is actually doing those things. But when you are, you know, too meticulous about certain things, you take away the natural feeling out of it, because humans are not perfect, and it means the things that we also do, the stories that we try to paint, cannot come off as perfection always. You have to always show that you are humans, and that is why a lot of people even relate and connect to the weak person, right? We relate and connect with the weak person because we understand that a lot of us are also weak ourselves, and we can always connect the struggles of the person to the struggles of our lives. And that is why, you know, you don't always have to be perfect about this thing, and you know, that is why putting too much planning into it can be detrimental. So when you are used to it, you can come off to be more natural about these things, and that is why practice is the fifth thing that you should do to be a better storyteller. Lack of practice is the mistake, of course, because a lot of us just jump into it. We just jump into it and expect the best result to come out of it, and for the most part, it does not always work that way, right? So that being said, I hope you have been able to, you know, pick one or two things from this video, and with some of the things that I have said here, I hope you can become a better storyteller. And I will definitely become a better storyteller as well, because the things that I have said here are the things that I do, and the things that I will also continue to do, you know, to be a better storyteller. You should watch out for the next video. I'm sure it is even going to be much more engaging and, you know, maybe better than this one. So I'll see you on the next one.